This is the Goal Talk Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Goal Talk Podcast. Today is episode 9, and we're talking through everything you need to know about the Facebook ads auction. Super excited to learn about this topic. This is something I'm not super well versed in, so I'm excited to have an expert here with me. Today, I am joined by Scott Mesite, who is a manager of paid search on our MS team. Correct?
Yes, thanks for having me. Appreciate
Super
it.
excited for you to be here. Our managed service team, as Holly mentioned, I think about 4 episodes ago, is our in-house agency that helps advertisers manage, all of their digital advertising across the board. So super excited to have you here. I know you know a lot about this topic, so I'm excited to dive in. But before we kind of get into the Facebook ad auction itself, I'd like to hear a little bit more about you and your role and how long you've been at WordStream.
Great. Yeah, I've been at WordStream for just about 2.5 years now.
Wow.
Which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
We've grown a lot since then, especially the managed services department. I've grown a lot, and when I started, I was just getting married, and now I'm going to be a dad.
That's so exciting. Congratulations.
That's like the fun thing. Thank you.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
On managed services, I manage a book of business. I tend to lean towards B2Bs, lead gen type accounts. Those are like my favorite to work on, but I do have e-commerce clients, and then I have a team of all together. We're 3 now, and
great.
It's been pretty fun.
That's awesome. Love it. So you've been here for 2.5 years. Have you always been on the managed services side?
Yep. Yeah. I came from a smaller agency in Providence, Rhode Island, and came straight into managed services from there. They were, a little bit smaller, but a totally, a little different flavor in terms of agency. So it's been cool to kind of get a different experience here at WordStream.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like agency life is so different. And especially when you go from an agency that's super small to an agency that's more like startup-y, it feels like almost a different world, but you're still focusing on similar things.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I always say agency years are like dog years.
Yeah.
Because there's so much happening. 1 year, actually feels like, a couple of years, you're like, wow.
So 2.5 years is really 6.
Yeah. With all the stuff you're always learning and things are changing. It's,
a lot to keep up with.
Cram up. Yeah.
So we are going to speak with Greg in a couple episodes, who does all of our training, both internal and was also on our customer success team. And a couple of weeks ago, he mentioned to me that he runs trainings for all the updates that happen. That must be crazy to, one, have to regularly go to trainings and stay up to date on all of these things with all of these partners. How do you find that also while managing a bunch of accounts?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the challenges of the job. Definitely makes it, I think, interesting field to work in. Mm-hmm. You're always learning something new, and between Greg's trainings, which are amazing, we love Greg, and coming up against different problems with each client in terms of how we're gonna solve for X, Y, and Z. That's another way that I feel like you're always learning on the job.
Yeah.
Or when you're in the accounts like Facebook, Google, every time they're rolling out something new. I when I first started at the smaller agency, and I feel like Facebook advertising has changed a lot since then, even though it's hasn't been tons of time, and but we used to say, we joke we were like Facebook pioneers, because at the time the agency was mostly just PPC based, and it's what kind of makes it fun.
Yeah, definitely. And we spoke to Holly a couple of episodes ago about the basics of just advertising across Facebook, Google, and Bing. And one of the stats that we discussed was the fact that I think over 70% of U.S. adults are on Facebook, which is crazy to think about where Facebook started. And it was mostly a young adult platform to keep in touch with people from college.
Yeah.
So while you were in college, like you needed an EDU email in order to sign up for Facebook back when it first started. And now the fastest growing user base on Facebook is like over 50.
Yeah. Oh, I know. it definitely is pretty crazy to think that like when I was in high school in like 2006, 2007, Facebook was just starting out, and now it's,
huge.
part of my job.
Right. And I'm not sure if that stat that I mentioned is because maybe they didn't have any form of social media, or if like the rest of the population was just an early adopter and they're catching up now.
Yeah.
Or if it's because these platforms are kind of lending themselves more to that, specific user base. But it's interesting because I do have friends with like younger siblings that they're like, I don't have a Facebook.
Yeah.
I would have a Facebook. Like,
yeah. I mean, that's
all right.
That's gonna be a whole nother thing in 10 years, how to kind of get the right
Reach
message to
that
those
person.
people at the right time.
Yeah.
That'll be.
I feel like it's so much Snapchat and
Snapchat,
Instagram and TikTok and all those different platforms.
Exactly.
Cool. So before we get into the nitty gritty, I want to kind of at a high level understand the Facebook auction and where it plays in to Facebook advertising in general before we start talking about how it works.
So in terms of like when an auction takes place, Facebook, and we'll talk about Facebook as if it's like a person, but the ad auction and the algorithms essentially identify opportunities in which an ad would be a good fit to serve within their family of apps, and those auctions are taking place, I think billions a day. So depending on those advertisers and who they're targeting within their campaigns, they're going to go into the ad auction, hopefully to the right people.
Cool. So different advertisers can participate in an ad auction as long as they're all shooting for relevant. Is it similar to within Facebook? I know it's triggered by like specific keywords and like your actual ad. Are there keywords or what triggers you participating
good question. Yeah,
in
definitely.
Facebook?
Okay. So there's a bunch of different targeting options in Facebook that make it really, I think, tactical and user-friendly. So, you can target by demographic. Let's say you're advertising for camps. You can serve ads to people who have children of a certain age that live in a certain location.
Wow, that's pretty granular.
Yeah, you can get extremely granular. You can target email lists, or you can create lookalike audiences, or you can retarget people that have been to your site.
So an email list would be like if you have a list of emails external to Facebook, like you've collected these people's data.
Yep.
You have them in your database and you can, upload that list?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
That's what, if, let's say you're trying to retarget past customers, Facebook makes it really easy to do so because lots of times there's a stronger chance of matching your CSV of emails to Facebook's audience than the other social media platforms we advertise on. I find Facebook does a really good job with that.
Cool.
So
sorry, I don't. Can you tell me what a CSV is?
Oh, yep. So that's just like an Excel file that Facebook and a lot of like Google, those platforms prefer to have the data in that. I think it's like comma separated value.
Yeah.
CSV.
So if you're in Excel, you could export that list as a CSV rather than as a .xls or whatever it is now.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And then Facebook, and then if you're doing Google too, they'll hash the data. So all your customer information's protected. Once it goes into the networks, it's hashed, which makes it hard for someone to say, get their hands on those emails.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So that's how people generally, or advertisers generally, participate in an ad auction, is with the actual targeting that they're using. And if two advertisers are targeting the same person, that's when the auction takes place.
Yep. Yeah. Well, really any, there could be hopefully minimal number of advertisers targeting a certain sub audience, which can, hopefully get you some lower CPCs.
Yeah. So I'm guessing there are some main like metrics or main things that you have to take into account that are integral to participating in Facebook in the auction itself. What are some of the differences, or what are some of the main metrics on Facebook that either might be the same or different than the ones that we have to worry about as advertisers on Google?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think there's a lot of similarities. And
That makes it easier.
yeah, definitely makes it
You
easier.
don't have to
like,
learn a new language.
Yeah, it's not a totally new language. It's pretty, they're pretty similar.
Mhm.
There's still like a bid. There's still ad. And theirs is a little bit different, like ad relevance. But um, I think the ideas are all pretty similar. Like Facebook has an idea of like the highest total value, and that's kind of like quality score in Google.
Okay.
So if you're familiar, you guys have had the podcast prior and probably have talked about quality score a bit.
Yep. Yeah, Christina Simonson, who does our internal paid, talked through the Google ad auction. She talked a lot about quality score.
Perfect. Yeah, it's almost kind of the same thing. Facebook, I think, kind of took from that and put their own spin on it, if you will. A lot of times with Facebook, what makes it really user friendly is as long as you have conversion tracking set up, you can, get started with a campaign to optimize for your conversions. Now there's a bunch of different ways to set that up, but essentially the one that Facebook would default to is basically setting up. You would tell Facebook, hey, this is our budget, this is how much we're willing to spend, and that kind of plays into what Facebook auctions you're going to get into.
Okay.
Because Facebook's going to try to get you as many of the conversions as possible within your budget.
So they'll optimize for however much you're willing to spend, and they won't put you in an auction that would eat up all your budget.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So they'll try to place you in budgets that are auctions that are a good fit for your budget.
Yep.
And
also fit in with your target audience.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yep. And then just like Google, that quality score piece, where there's like ad relevance. Facebook has something very similar with ad quality, and you'll see that when you go on Facebook, and that's really speaking to, is the ad relevant to your target audience? How are people engaging with your ads?
Yep. So like actually liking or commenting or sharing it.
Exactly. If they're hiding the ads from their feed, then that's gonna
diminish your score.
Exactly, and that's gonna make your CPCs higher, and you'll get into less auctions.
So there's a relationship between your actual ad relevance and how much you're going to pay for a click.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So if you have a higher ad relevance, you generally have a lower cost per click, or the opposite.
Oh no, that logic's correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, it's like all coming together to that total value.
Okay.
The other component of that is what Facebook calls their estimated action rate. So that's
what's that?
Yeah, that's kind of like the X factor, if you will.
Okay.
I think that's where their algorithm comes in, and they're basically at real time, just like kind of Google's smart bidding, determining, okay, what is the rate that Facebook thinks that user will convert for you. So you combine kind of that action rate, your ad relevance, and then how much you're willing to pay if you have, and we can talk a little bit more about that in a second, but your bid.
Yep.
So those kind of three components, just like Google's quality score in a sense, all factor into where you show. Yeah.
So one big question that I have that you're kind of touching on a little bit, in the Google ad auction, there are like a set of placements that you bid to be either number 1 on the SERP, number 2 on the SERP, number 3 on the SERP, or just not be on the SERP at all if your score is low and you're not bidding enough.
Yep.
On Facebook, are there like better placements that you're bidding on, or is it just showing versus not showing?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I don't know if I would say, we typically find that the newsfeed is like one of the best places to show for Facebook, and same with Instagram.
Okay.
A lot of advertisers sometimes will just choose to only show in those.
Yeah.
And I think this is kind of continually changing. I find myself now more so selecting, letting Facebook show across all their different platforms. So, show up in messaging, show up on the right hand side.
Yeah.
And, at least experimenting with it first, because sometimes the traffic's cheaper there because
Right.
there's less competition, and that can help drive down your acquisition cost.
So showing in an Instagram or a Facebook feed itself would likely be more expensive than showing up either in that rail to the right of the feed or within Messenger or something like that.
Exactly.
Is it similar for stories?
Yep. Yeah. I would say like the top two would be the feeds, and then it kind of works its way down. Like Marketplace too. All those are.
Oh, you can show up in Marketplace? I didn't even know that.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty crazy now. I like to start and let Facebook kind of, scour their networks to find the people that are going to be most likely interested in the ad. Because, I think one of the things that's awesome about Facebook is it's really hard to, passively go after people.
Yeah.
So
do you find that it's easier to kind of start out more broad in your placements or where you're trying to fit, especially with a new campaign?
Yep.
And then as you get more data, you can kind of go more granular and restrict it a little bit more so you can get more specific?
Exactly.
That's kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And then I would say the only other thing too is just making sure you're setting like appropriate budgets for your audience.
Okay, let's talk about budgets. Money talk.
Yeah, good. I mean, this is tough because you can see some success with a smaller daily budget, but I think sometimes some of the things I see on different clients' accounts, if I'm auditing one or taking one over, is maybe they don't have enough budget allocated. They're have it $2 a day, $1 a day, and
not getting enough data.
Yeah, you really want to give it like more data in the beginning. $10 a day if you can, even if it's for like a little while, just to figure out what's working.
Yeah.
Ideally, depending on what type of advertiser you are, you'll see the return there, and you can keep reinvesting.
Yeah.
Based on your business model and
as you're getting more success, you can start investing more to bring more success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. So, I'm talking about budgets. Can you choose to break out your budget based on a full month budget, your like monthly budget, or by your daily budget, or do you kind of have to choose? Because I know there are some platforms where you set the total budget that you want to spend, and then your daily budget could
exactly
be a smaller amount of that.
Yep. Yeah. So definitely right on target there. You can do like a lifetime budget, or
lifetime meaning monthly.
It doesn't have to be monthly. That's the cool thing. Like with Google now, they have monthly budget, daily budget. Facebook, you could say, I only want this to run for like 2 weeks, and spend
the entire lifetime of that campaign.
Exactly. Yep.
Would be okay.
Yeah. So then, in those situations, if you are doing that and you want to keep running, you just have to make sure you're kicking out that end date and adding more budget. Yeah. I things are always changing on Facebook, which kind of makes it interesting to advertise on.
Yeah.
I would say like a year ago, I would always say, okay, retargeting, you can start with daily budgets, but for like your prospecting audiences, stick with lifetime budgets.
Okay.
And
why do you say that?
Yeah, I mean, the school thought before was, okay, if you go lifetime budget, it lets the algorithm get a lot of data in the beginning. It's not capped by any
right.
arbitrary daily spend cap.
So you would spend more in the beginning as it gets data, and then as it kind of optimizes for what you're doing and what goals you want to accomplish, it can spend less money but in a more efficient way.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's that.
Dropping some knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, and then, but now sometimes I've seen some advertisers still find great success with just daily budgets. So
yeah,
I would say, test everything.
Yeah.
I know that sounds
In
crazy,
general,
but yeah,
always be testing.
Yeah. Just because some things that are like best practice or work for some people, don't for others, and vice versa. So
yeah, I feel like it's so specific and it's so dependent on not only your goals as a company, but also what your budget is, who your target audience is, what your business model is. Like if you're asking somebody to fill out a form versus asking them to buy a pair of shoes, barrier to entry is a little bit different because one, in one case, somebody's just like telling you their email address, and in the other case, you're asking them to spend $70 on your product.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and I think that comes down to something I like to talk about a lot is like form following function. So
Okay.
like the form of your campaigns should ideally, they shouldn't be random. You know, you should have some sort of function for each campaign. In Facebook, I like to do like prospecting versus retargeting. So like, cold audiences or upper funnel audiences versus people that have, interacted with your brand before.
So what you're talking about is like really aligning your funnel with the type of campaign and the type of offer that you put in each
Exactly.
ad set. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes like, um, like a lot of the conversation is around like getting conversions, but as we mentioned too, sometimes you might want to change your campaign objective to like brand awareness to get in front of new people, so you can then get to your site and then either, depending on what type of business you are, have them download something like a case study for run a lead gen campaign.
Push them to the next stage of that funnel.
Exactly. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I really like that thought that, really in all of paid marketing, your form should follow your function. What you're trying to accomplish should not only echo in the copy that you use, the offer that you choose. Whoa, I rhymed.
Yeah.
That was funny. But in your copy, your offer, your landing page copy, everything should kind of go together. And I feel like that will then speak back to how Google and Facebook will give you a score.
Exactly.
Based on how relevant and how much what you're promoting does what it says it does.
Exactly. And that totally speaks to like that ad quality piece.
Yeah.
Facebook wants to, just like Google, they're all about creating a great user experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and 100%. If you're doing a better job at creating the right message, putting it in front of the right person that is going to be interested in that, then you're going to pay less per click, you're going to get into more auctions, and ideally you'll be able to keep growing your campaigns.
Yeah. So in talking about going back to the budget piece, I know here at WordStream, we talked about this on the Google episode as well, but we have a lot of data and a lot of, resources, not only on our blog, but we have a lot of guides. There's also just on the internet in general, a lot of resources for helping you choose your budget and figure out how much you should be allocating either per day or per campaign. We do have something called the Facebook ads benchmarks, which I think will be really helpful for advertisers to choose and kind of look up based on their specific industry how much they should be ready to spend for a click or for a conversion or for like an acquisition or something like that.
Yep.
So definitely take a look at those, and those should help you kind of determine where you should start. Are there different bidding methods, or do you just set your bid?
Yeah, no, there are definitely a lot of different bid strategies. It seems like there's too many sometimes.
Daunting.
You can like what I think is new. I don't know when this exactly came out, but at least as I've been running ads, this is something that I've started testing out.
Sure.
But so you can advertise around highest value. So say you're an e-commerce client and you have revenue tracking and all that set up, you can either maximize that value, kind of very similar to Google has like maximize conversions.
Yeah.
Facebook has that too. So you could either go highest value, or you could say flat out, hey, I'm going to set a minimum return on ad spend. If I'm not making 1.5 return, then it's not worth for me going into that auction. And on the flip side, there's basically like a target CPA too in Facebook. And
CPA meaning cost per acquisition. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and they keep kind of building on that. So like let's say you put they call it like cost control, and it's optional. So either and I think the default most of the time as you're getting started is saying, okay, here's my budget. get me as many conversions as you possibly can, and then start to see, okay, because what will happen too over time as your ad frequency goes up and you start to saturate more of that audience, you're gonna have to either keep updating your ads or
spending more money.
yeah, you'll see, over time, it's like fishing in a pond. You kind of have to be strategic about it too. You want to collapse your fishery, if you will.
Yeah. Use different bait.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, change it up. So like that's why cost control can be helpful too, because sometimes you may start seeing diminishing returns, and okay, I'm only profitable if I'm aiming for $30 per conversion.
Yep.
So there's like cost cap, there's bid cap, and then there's target cost. And cost cap is best for like getting as many conversions as you can at your $30 CPA. Target cost is like trying to just be as consistent as possible. So
okay.
like you can do a cost cap, and what could happen is you could still be way off your CPA target, or what will happen is your ad set will not get out of learning phase.
We talked about the learning period with Christina. We'll circle back on that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's just like Google's smart bidding too. There's a learning period. And then like bid cap, let's say you want to control bids. I mean, that was kind of the way I started doing Facebook, was like Google. Back when you were just paying a CPC for getting people to your site. But when you do like optimized strategies for conversions, it's a CPM bid strategy, which just means cost per mile, and that mile just means 1,000 impressions.
Oh, got it.
I don't know where the mile came from but that's just what that stands for.
Cool. So you talked about conversions. Are you counting conversions or like tracking towards conversions on your website or on the ad itself? Because I know there are some ads that allow you to like convert right within the ad. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about bringing someone back to the website? Oh,
yeah.
Confusing.
So yeah, depending on like if you have like a lead generation campaign,
which has like a form right within the ad itself.
Exactly.
So you never have to go to a landing page.
Yep. And because the conversion rate is usually higher for those, usually you're trying to get someone to, just get a piece of content. A lot of times you'll find that the CPA or cost per acquisition is a lot lower on those, because conversion rate, less conversion friction, if you will.
Yep.
I always think of that formula, and it's usually going to be a little bit tougher to get someone to go all the way to your site and, ideally convert.
Yeah.
Whatever your business model is, if it's a lead or if it's buying something on your site.
Yeah. So let's get back to that pesky learning period. Christina was talking about how within Google, it's generally like a 7-day learning period for those automated bidding strategies that kind of decreases how much your ad will run, but will ramp up after that 7 days based on what it's learned and kind of the adjustments the algorithm has taken in based on what you say is important.
Yep.
How does that differ on Facebook? Or is it exactly the same?
It's pretty similar. Yeah.
Okay.
You may come on a learning phase a little bit sooner if, like, say it's a small adjustment to an ad set that's already existing, like any kind of changes to the audience, to the budget, maybe adding a new ad could potentially kick it back into learning, and very similar with Google too. So
okay. And is it the same things that start the learning period for Facebook? I know it was like major budget changes or pausing something and turning it back on, or like switching out an offer or something like that.
Yeah, it's very similar. I would say the only difference is like, ads can potentially really change performance in Facebook. Not that it can't in Google, but like that image piece is such a
there's such a visual aspect.
Yeah.
Versus in Google search, it's all text.
Exactly. Yeah. So
except I guess there's like Mark Irvin just wrote a thing about
the image extensions.
Yeah,
those are new.
So that's
cool.
new.
Well, yeah, and they're bringing them back. Yeah. Yep.
But in terms of what triggers the learning period in general, it's all based on similar things than what would be in Google. And is the learning period generally 7 days?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I've always seen, about 7 days.
Okay.
And the only time it won't get out of learning period is if it doesn't have enough data.
Okay.
And that will be it didn't get enough conversions in a short enough time for you to get out of that phase. So, that's actually something that is a little bit newer that they're giving you that type of info now.
Okay.
And in those cases, you have to adjust your audience, adjust your budget.
Right. Would you suggest that advertisers try to avoid the learning period when possible, or should they like consolidate their changes to one time so that they don't keep kicking themselves into learning period? Because I feel like if you're diminishing your ad delivery, that's not optimal to keep happening over and over and over.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you definitely want to, minimize that unless performance is moving in the wrong direction. Then,
then
you
just
have
get
to
in
go
there and switch it up.
Yeah. Roll your hands up and start, roll your sleeves up.
Everywhere.
Yeah. But yeah, things are going really well. I would try to, just, don't fix what is broken, hopefully.
Yeah. But really, like, if you have changes, like maybe throughout the month, you like make a list of really small tweaks that you want to make and then implement them like 1 week in the month rather than continuously like changing little things or adjusting little things because you don't want to keep kicking back into this learning period.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I think, it's a bit of a battle, for sure. So sometimes like you may find that you just need to pause out the ad set and launch a whole new one.
Yeah.
With the change too. Sometimes that's like a safer way of going about it.
Yeah.
And then if it doesn't perform as well, you can always, you can set up A/B tests too in Facebook. A lot of times, just like Google, Facebook, you may want to just A/B test an ad instead of just putting it into the account. So
right.
You have some options.
A/B testing meaning like 50% on one, like spend 50% on one thing and 50% on the other.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool.
So another question, we've talked a lot about the similarities between Google and Facebook in terms of the ad auction. There are some differences, like what kicks in the auction itself and how Facebook can help. It seems like Facebook helps you a little bit more like than Google would.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like one thing with Facebook is, they basically, have a really good sense of their user when it comes to display advertising, because they're pretty much monitoring kind of what you're interested in.
Yeah, you literally tell them everything you like, and as you interact with things,
they learn about you, and then they figure out, okay, you're a really good fit for this type of product. You can look at that different ways, but I like to look at it that, hey, I may see I'd rather see a product. I guess I like to think of it like versus like TV. I'd rather see a commercial, or I don't want to see a commercial for things that are not a good fit for me. Like Life Alert wouldn't be a good fit for me right now.
Right.
And I find that really like frustrating. Whereas with like Facebook and paid search, we can at least provide a product that you might not have heard of.
But might still be interested in.
Yeah, like Burrow. We bought a house last year, and I hadn't really seen like great ways to get affordable furniture, and Burrow showed up on Instagram for me, and it was a good fit. So
cool. Yeah, it's helpful.
Yeah, super helpful.
I love that alignment when you're thinking about a problem that you're gonna have to solve, and it's kind of like this daunting task, and you're like, it's exciting that I'm moving, but now I need a bunch of new furniture and I need to spend money on that. But then you get an ad that kind of shows up and helps you solve that problem. It's like one way that advertising really does make a difference.
Yeah.
Because I think generally people kind of think of advertising as a pest.
Yeah. I feel like it gets a bad rap sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. So like I said, we've talked about a lot of the differences, a lot of the similarities between Facebook and Google. What are some of the main differences that advertisers need to keep in mind between like advertising on search and advertising on social in general?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, the biggest difference would just be with search. It's inactive, form where people are actively seeking out that product at that exact time.
Yeah.
So
Oh, true. They're like, you're literally telling them you're in market for it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where Facebook, it's still display. It's one of, I think, the most highly measurable and targeted display channels out there. But it's still display. One thing to keep in mind too that I think can be a little bit easy to forget is Facebook's conversion metric combines view through conversions with click conversions. So I'm not sure if you guys have talked about that a little bit in the past.
No, I'm gonna need to know more about both of those things.
Okay, yeah. So like a view through is like someone that may have seen a Facebook ad and then convert in like 7 days or so.
Okay. View through just meaning they there was an impression, like they saw it.
Exactly.
Okay.
But they may not have interacted and clicked it.
Okay.
So you can break all that out in Facebook, but it does kind of roll those two together.
Interesting.
And the way I look at it too is you want to be looking at your marketing holistically too. So Facebook should ideally drive brand awareness, and they may not click on your Facebook ad, but they may search your brand name and get to your site directly.
I've definitely done that. And I think because I've been working in advertising for so long, this is my 5th year, I think, working in the world of like digital marketing and online advertising. I think I've kind of wired my brain to recognize an ad and make a decision about, do I want to click on that ad and support that business, or do I want to search that business, which is just a roundabout way of supporting that business as well. But I think sometimes I kind of make that decision. Do I want to click on that ad and look through it, or will I like cause myself more work but kind of work around? And I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think like it's so easy to like get look at your channels like in a vacuum.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think you should try to just kind of keep looking at the big picture, making sure that everything's working together. A lot of times you find like you can pause Facebook retargeting. Also, on your brand traffic drops, your organic traffic drops, and your conversions can drop.
Oh, right. So what you're saying is if you're running Google search campaigns and then you're remarketing that audience that has searched you on Facebook, and if you like pause that, it might go full circle and lower the amount of people that are searching you because less people are seeing your ad or just kind of like seeing your company name.
Yep.
And if they think about something later instead of searching, like if I saw an ad for Casper mattresses on Facebook, and then later on, I'm like, darn it, I need a new mattress. Instead of searching mattress, I might search Casper.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's something some people call it like out of channel lift. It's just like something you forget about. And a lot of times people, maybe pause like Facebook thinking that it's not working, but it's impacting your other channels.
Yeah.
And
it all plays into a bigger picture.
Exactly. Yeah. Like your ecosystem.
Cool. We've talked about a lot today, and I know that I have definitely learned a lot. Is there anything else in terms of, Facebook ad auction or bidding or structure that you think is really important for small businesses to know as they get started in advertising on social, both Facebook and Instagram?
Yeah. I guess my like key takeaways would be, one, make sure you have the Facebook pixel on your website. I mean, I know it sounds like a no-brainer, but that is going to make or break your campaign. Yeah, if your pixel isn't on there because it's collecting data about all the traffic that goes to your site.
Yep.
2, I would say then try to make sure you have accurate conversion tracking set up.
Yep.
3 would be form follows function.
Yep.
Think about that relevance. 4 would be allocating the right budget to the right size audience.
Yeah.
And I think if you're thinking about it that way, you should put yourself in a pretty good, space to kind of get going on Facebook. I mean, for a lot of times, since I do work with a lot of B2B clients, they will say, oh, well, I don't know if Facebook's a good fit for me because I'm trying to drive demos.
Yeah.
Sometimes, maybe it isn't a good fit, so you got to test it. But in the cases that it can be really effective because you can, plug in your highest lifetime value customer list, create a lookalike audience, and get out in front of those people.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's important to mention that, like especially with B2B, that's something that I hear interacting with customers, being on the road, because I do a lot of events for WordStream. So like being on the road and interacting with prospects or customers, one of the things I hear all the time is, I don't do Facebook, I'm B2B. And it's like, I understand where that logic comes from, but remember that people that work at businesses have Facebook profiles.
Yeah.
Like both you and I work at businesses, and we could be purchasers of software.
Yep.
But we both have personal Facebook profiles. And if we see something on Facebook that's really interesting, whether it be for us as a consumer or us as a business person, we're going to click on that ad.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, 100%. I think, we get so sometimes caught up in the idea that, hey, you and I are only going to be interested in digital marketing,
right?
And searching on that. And, we may actually be interested in some software that we didn't know about that serves on Facebook. So, definitely got to test it.
Yeah, definitely important to be testing. But yeah, those are some really great tips. And thank you so much for your time.
Thanks
it
for
was
having me. It was
awesome.
Great.
I really appreciated it. I got a lot of really great takeaways. Again, make sure you look out for our Facebook benchmarks. I know we talked about pixeling. WordStream's, easy tag does allow you to encompass all of those really important pixels all in one step. So either if you're thinking about WordStream or if you've used it, definitely make sure you're talking about that with your rep. And next up on the roster, we are going to be talking to Kim Castings, who is our customer marketer. And we're going to talk about keeping your customers happy and what that means and how we can accomplish that as marketers. So we'll see you next week. As always, don't forget to follow us at Goal Talk Podcast on Twitter. Keep the conversation going, and we'll see you next week.